My name is Ellen Sprouls, and in my day job, I'm the director of Impression 5, which is downtown Lansing. And tonight I want to talk about some of the hidden treasures of downtown Lansing. It's a walking tour, guided walking tour that you can take through Impression 5. We do most of them for school-age children as a way to teach them about the history of Lansing by using a lot of the sculpture that you can find on the architecture downtown. Now there are several self-guided tours, if you're interested in, that you can take. There's one that's published by the R.E. Olds Museum, and you can start the tour at their museum, and the tour is available there. This year, the Sculpture in the Streets program also has a tour, and you can pick up these brochures at most of the merchants downtown. You can pick them up at Impression 5. You can get them at the Visitor Center in Old Town. Then the Capitol has a self-guided walking tour that you can take of the Capitol and the Capitol grounds. And they have a special tour of the gardens, because every summer they change the flowers that are in the garden. And these you can both get in the lower level of the Capitol at the information desk. But that tonight, we'd have some fun. It's a little hard to do a walking tour of buildings without the buildings. So I decided that I would have to have some fun, and I'd bring parts of the buildings to you, and we're going to test. I'm going to use the word test. We're going to see, I'm going to show you some pictures, give you a few seconds, how many of the hidden treasures that I am going to show you that you might be able to identify. Now this is a small sampling because this is intended to sort of whet your appetite, because on the evening of September the 18th, which is a Wednesday, at 5:30, starting at the Comerica Bank building, I'm going to conduct the walking tour. So these are some of the things to whet your appetite on the part of the downtown area that I'll be doing the walking tour on. So here's our first picture. And I apologize for having pictures and not slides, but I only do digital. Anybody wants to see the image, I can pass it around. Our first one.
Now we're supposed to know what that is?
You can guess. That's why I'm seeing it. How many of these can people identify? Now it's also kind of hard because you're seeing only a small part of the building. Everything I'm going to show you is a small part of something. You can't see it in its whole contents.
We're supposed to tell you the building.
Yeah, I did.
Just write it down?
Write it down.
Write it down.
Write down what you think it is and where you might find what building it might be on or in front of in downtown Lansing. This is,
Flunking already.
don't worry, it's not
You're not
past
fail
fail.
thing.
This is a picture of the earth with a hand holding lightning bolts.
I've got a
Hint. She's giving hints.
The third one is a unique lamp. Oh,
I know what she
this one is actually the fourth picture, and it's at number 4.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, I feel like I've seen this before, but
Fifth one is a dormer. Now, all of these things are downtown, which means they have to be on either Washington, Capitol, or Michigan Avenue, in that downtown area there. All right, I'll give you a hint. A little help. I see that one.
Lamp.
that's the land.
Here's another lamp set between two columns someplace.
This is 2.
We probably should have numbered the back of them.
I didn't get to see it originally.
All right, I have no idea. But you can see this one.
Thank you.
I don't have any more idea. Like the others, I think.
That's 5.
Definitely not very
Number 6 is 3.
Now I'm getting confused.
Windows.
Which?
Right,
Which?
that's number 5. So write a 5 on the back. That way we'll keep. Number 4 is the one with 4. This is number 1.
This is
That was number
2.
2. So that has to be number,
This
3.
one,
What's this one?
this is
That was 3.
that's 3.
That's 3.
That's 3.
This is
I think that's
5.
6.
I've got 5.
Oh, you're
Well, she told
the
me
teacher
I'm
flag.
gonna put 5 on the list.
This is number 1. Who's got 2? Number 2 is the one Ron has.
Lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt.
Right, this is number 2.
Not only do you have to get them right, you have to unscramble them.
3 is the light. That's 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wrote a 3 on that.
Right.
Okay, 4 is the
4
4.
is 4.
So 5
I thought
is the lamp.
I'll
That's
get
6. And this is 7.
I put it up there. Sorry, Jean told me.
Yes, I was. Number 7, 3 windows with cute little Romanesque arches.
got 6.
Anybody want to see 2
Pass
or
this one
1?
back up.
Okay, who needs 5? There's 5.
Number 8.
Boy, she's going so fast.
Never seen that.
That's okay. We numbered them now.
I know, but I don't know where they are.
Well, eventually
Oh,
we
okay.
can line them all up.
Well, I'll just have to,
Oh.
now what is this?
Number 8.
What the heck
Number
happened to number 7?
Slate roof.
7 was the last one I showed, which is
The windows? The windows.
the windows, the 3 windows with the arches.
Oh, okay, the 3 windows.
Well, it's gotta be here somewhere.
6.
It is.
Yeah, I'm holding this.
Ron's got it.
I have the 3 windows here.
There's the
I'll
K.
look at them.
Because we haven't, yeah.
That's
we
8.
have some on,
Yep.
because I haven't.
Number 9 is an elephant.
That's my guess.
And this is on an outside of a building?
Uh-huh.
Some of them are, yeah, certainly I'm not very observant.
I'm not quite sure what to do with these that I have in my hand.
I think
Number-
sail them back up to the front.
Yeah.
Number 10 is a gentleman holding a real silver cloud. Part of our automobile heritage here in Lansing.
And this is all downtown.
All of this is downtown. Part of why I do the walking tour is because most of the time when you're downtown, you walk downtown and you see only what's at eye level.
Right.
If it's slightly above eye level, we don't look up. So the point of this is to look up.
Yes.
Right, that
what it is.
11.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
This is number 11.
The elephant?
A bronze woman holding some tools of trade.
Yeah.
And it's not in a building, right?
Not in the building, no.
Boy, I must walk around with my eyes closed.
And number 12 is a cameo of a young woman.
For real.
Oh, I guess we all need to go on the tour. Certainly do. What time did you say that?
Yeah,
Do that right away. The 18th, at what time?
At 5:30.
Wow.
Serve a little wine and cheese afterwards
It's starting
inside the bank. At the Comerica Bank building, which is at the corner of.
America.
Oh,
We'll get your name and addresses so we
They
can
do
send
know
you
that?
information. Now this one is for bonus points. If anybody can identify this one, you're really good. It's part of a window and a cornice. But this is definitely bonus point material.
All these buildings are still here, right?
Yeah.
And we're last time
There's we're at 8. Okay, we got some more? Okay, good.
Okay.
8.
And it's downtown.
8.
I just can't hardly believe it.
It's okay.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here, to have fun.
Oh, I can pass.
Because when I've lived in Lansing a little over 4 years, and when I first came here, one of the first questions I remember asking somebody was, what can you tell me about the skyscraper? And everybody said to me, what skyscraper? The skyscraper downtown. And because I was from the Baltimore, Washington area, then I'd make matters worse, because the tallest building in Baltimore is the Maryland National Bank building. I'd say, the Maryland National Bank building. Then they'd really be confused, and I'd say, no, the Michigan National Bank building. Well, that's not a skyscraper.
Wasn't it originally Stoddard building?
Stoddard was the president. Stoddard was the first president of the
president, yeah.
bank that was
Okay.
established in 1941. That became Michigan National Bank.
Okay.
That's the Olds Tower.
It is the old tower.
That was.
Ariel's wrote a check for it the day it was completed.
Okay, so we have the
Here you go.
pictures.
This is
What else need to
Bochi.
see any?
It's 11.
Oh,
Oh,
10.
Oh, is it?
somewhere around.
Bochi's on it.
7 or 8, I think. I
Who's got 10?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3,
She's gonna try
10.
and handle
10.
that.
Oh,
I'd like to
Oh,
go back.
I'm glad we ended.
Oh, I'm glad I asked for that.
That's got the silver cloud. That's
Yeah.
the gentleman holding
Oh,
the silver
yeah.
cloud.
Wow.
It's a real.
How about 6, 7, and 8?
Okay, let's find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops. This could be 6.
That's the bonus one right there.
This is 7.
Dental mold.
This is 7.
Coins.
There's 8.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2 of these.
That's next to the house.
You probably know where that was.
But I don't know what it's
Yeah.
called, so that's not gonna help.
No,
That's
listen,
okay.
you got more than I know.
In fact, I think every one of these buildings but one has changed its name over the years. So, any one of the names will be sufficient.
Oops.
Go. Okay. Slider.
She's not gonna tell us, right?
That concludes the talk for this evening.
Come back next month and find
No,
out.
yeah. No, no.
Well, that concludes her part of the talk. Now it's our part.
Okay, so here we go. One is on fire. Lansing has 3 very famous buildings that I'm sure everybody here can identify and knows. And the 3, probably the 3 most famous buildings in town after the state capitol, because that's a building that really belongs to the state. And we should be very proud of it, but of course everybody can recognize the capitol. But then there is the building that is currently referred to as the Bogie Tower. It was referred to as the Michigan National Tower. Yes, because Mr. Ron Bogie and his father own the building now.
How do you spell it?
B-O,
J.
J.I.
E or I?
No,
I.
B-O-J-I.
yeah, B-O-J-I, Bogie. And it was the Michigan National Tower before that. And it was first called the Olds Tower because he put up the capital that paid to build the building.
It's still Michigan National Top.
Right.
For what they say.
This is the Knapp's building, and the Knapp's building was built in 1937 by the Chrisman Company here in Lansing. It's a very famous art modern building. It sort of looks like it's racing towards you on the corner here. It's probably one of the most distinctive art modern buildings in the entire Midwest. Pictures of this building have appeared in several books about the history of American architecture. And of course, something else that highlights our skyline is the Board of Water and Light building. Now these are probably the 3 most distinctive and well-known buildings, and both of these are classic Art Deco buildings, especially when you view it from the side because it has that wedding cake structure. It's thinner as it gets to the top. And this building is most unusual because when you look at it from either the south side or the north side, it really looks like a burning flame because the bottom of the building is black, then the brick is brown, and then it's dark red, then it gets to orange, and it becomes yellow. And that's supposed to symbolize the burning of the coal because it was a coal burning plant. And especially from the north and the south side, when you have that good Art Deco profile, it really does look like the shape of a flame. So those are our three more famous buildings. On to our quiz. The first picture of the man with the capital holding the shovel and the sun and the river, I do believe this represents the Grand River. This is on the Capitol Avenue side of City Hall. And underneath it, it says City of Lansing. I cut that part out because I thought it would be too easy. I don't have a picture of City Hall because I think everybody would recognize City Hall.
Well, I gotta leave now, I'll be 100%.
Got one.
Number 2 and number 3 are on what is today called the AT&T building, but was built as the Michigan Bell Telephone building. This is the Capitol Avenue side of the building. And what's very interesting is that right over the main entrance is where you find the globe with the lightning bolts. Also on that building are several sculptures, reliefs carved into the side of the building about where the telephone would be found. And I can pass these around because these are kind of tiny. One is the home, and notice the woman is talking on the phone.
Why does it have to be a woman?
One is this building was built in the 30s. This is the office, and the woman again is talking on the phone. Then there's one of the factory, and of course it has a man, but he's not using a phone. And my farm picture didn't come out, but the farmer is also a male, and he's not using the phone, which I think is very interesting, because culturally in the 30s, telephones were really thought to be something that women used rather than men. And I think about my father and his brothers who grew up in the 30s, and the men of that generation are not talkers on the telephone. You call my parents' house, the only time my dad answers is if my mother's not home. And it's very interesting when you look at the reliefs on the AT&T building, it's only the women that have a phone to the face. The men in the reliefs do not. Number 4 is actually not on the building, but it's in the sidewalk in front of the building. It's in front of what was built as the Michigan Millers Mutual Insurance Company, which is now the home,
Which is next to the telephone.
which is next to the telephone company, which is now the home of the Secretary of State's office. What this is a millstone. In the sidewalk in front of the insurance company building, the old Mutual Insurance Company building, are 7 of these, and they were millstones, and number 4 was taken from Lowell, Michigan. They were taken, there's one from Monroe, one from Utica, one from Ada, one from Lowell, one from Hart, one from Maurice, and one from Alma. And there's a plaque on the side of the building that identifies what they are. Number 5 is from the Carnegie Library, which is now part of the LCC campus. It's now, I think, the Theater Arts Department has offices in the Carnegie Library. And this building was actually a fairly famous building because it was designed by the same architect, Mr. Bowd, who also did the Board of Water and Light building. Although this one was older. This one was built in the 20s. And I think this build date,
1909, I think.
yes, is 1909. Right, now, there was originally a decorative part up here, which was replaced when they added on to the top of the library, but other than that, it looks pretty much the way it did when it was built. And when the school system built the new library, the school system also transferred the Carnegie Library because it was paid for through the Andrew Carnegie Foundation in the earlier part of the century. Number 6 is the dormer window off the Greek, this was a tough one, off the Greek Revival style building which sides on Washington Street. I think the cross street here is Hillsdale, but I'm not absolutely certain. Meant to drive by on my way over and I forgot.
That one I just didn't know the name of.
But
Yeah. I identified it by the human
So
page.
far.
number 7 is one of the windows on the lower part of the Michigan National Tower building. While the building overall is a classic work of Art Deco, the bottom part, think of the entrance, it has a recessed, vaulted, arched entrance, which was very Romanesque. The bottom part of this building is very Romanesque in character, the classic style, which was popular from about 1900 to about 1915 in this country, the classic revival style. This house that we're in, the Turner Dodge house, the front is classic revival style. Influenced a lot by the Romanesque style by a gentleman by the name of Henry Hobson Richardson, really made it very popular in the United States. So if you were to walk along the bank, especially on the Allegan Street side, and you didn't look up, you would think that you were looking at a building that's much older, because the architect that designed this building, the bottom of it is very Romanesque, and the top part, of course, is very Art Deco. Number 8, the K off the Naps building. Yay! There are actually several of them. Several of them on the front of the other side of the building there. Nine, the elephant. 10, the gentleman holding the Rio. And 11 are all on the Comerica Bank building. And I'm going to come back
That's the
and
front doors, yeah.
yes, I'm going to
Okay.
come back and talk a little bit more in detail about this particular building because it is truly one of the jewels of downtown Lansing.
That's the Comerica Bank building?
It's the
there?
base
Comerica
of
Bank.
Lansing.
Used to be the Bank of Lansing.
I didn't even know.
And it started out, when it began construction, it was started by the City National Bank, who went bankrupt during the process. Okay, number 12 is from what was built as the Strand Theater, but became the Michigan Theater,
Now called the Arcade Building.
now called the Arcade Building. To help you recall, here is the front, and I'll pass this around, the front of the building, and there is actually 2 cameos. This building was designed by John Everson, who did quite a few theaters. It was owned by a gentleman by the name of Butterfield. He owned several theaters in Jackson, and Mr. Everson did several theaters for him. And it is believed that the cameos are composites. He had 3 daughters, are composites of his 3 daughters, and these were actually done by a sculptor in Chicago, and then brought here and put on the building. Now the bonus point one, I think that this one is tough. The coins on this building are are quite distinctive, but this is truly the most hidden treasure in all of downtown Lansing. Well, I refer to a lot of these as hidden treasures because in fact you have to look up to see them. This is truly a hidden treasure because this is part of the 1875 Lansing High School building. There is a small part of the 1875 structure, yes.
Central High School.
Well, when it was built in 1875, it was Lansing High School. Lansing Central, then a new building was built, and most of the older high school was knocked down. And even then, when it first opened, it was still Lansing High School, because Lansing only had one high school. It didn't become Lansing Central until Lansing Eastern was built.
Where is that?
This is, there are two parts of it extant, or you can get at it from two different places. As you are on Shiawassee Street, and if you are heading west on Shiawassee Street, you have to go past the Carnegie Library building, and there's an alley. If you go down in that alley, you can see it. And then also on Genesee Street, which is the next street to the north, there's a little entryway and a little garden. If you go through on the Genesee Street side, this is actually from the Genesee Street side of the facade. But it's truly a hidden treasure. So that's why we have to get bonus points. And when I first came upon it, I was really surprised. So I didn't know a whole lot about the history of the building. Now, the Bank of Lansing building, I just wanted to spend the last few minutes talking about this building in a little bit more detail, because it is truly the last of the opulent buildings that was built anywhere in the United States. Construction began on this bank in 1931. And construction started, it was by the City National Bank of Lansing. Lee and Kenneth Black, two very famous local architects, designed the building, and the building was built by Reiniger Construction. Reiniger Construction. And then in 1931, the National Bank, the Bank of Lansing, purchased what would become, the building was under construction when they purchased it. They finished construction and they opened it up as the Bank of Lansing. The Bank of Lansing's main office had been here in Northtown on Grand River. And then they moved from a very small bank here to this big building downtown. The entrance here, this building is the only building in Lansing that's downtown that was built with the same quality of stone from top to bottom on all four sides of the building. There is not a rough brick side to this building. So the buildings that abut the building go right up to a good side of the building. The same marble was used on all four sides, which is very unusual in a skyscraper. The entrance, very Romanesque arch. The two elephants sit over the pillars. Now the elephants had to be recast when they restored the bank in the 1980s because they were originally concrete. They were afraid when they would move them, they would shatter.
They were originally marble.
Yeah, but
They're now concrete.
And they shattered. They made molds from them when before they moved them because they felt that they would shatter when they moved them, and they did. So that these were cast from the molds that they made from them. But everything else on the bank is still original. What's kind of fun about this is, I call this gentleman Rio Man. Rio Man is one of several men holding various different things in his hands around the arch. And around the arch is the history of labor in Lansing, because in addition to the gentleman holding the Rio, you start down at the bottom. The first one is a man holding a plow, because farming was the first occupation here. Above that, there is a gentleman holding, plow is first, a wheelbarrow, because our first major manufacturing plant in Lansing was a wheelbarrow, was Lansing Wheelbarrow. Followed by the gentleman holding the Rio, which is quite appropriate. Automobiles were able to be made here because the craftsmen that Olds needed to build his cars were here, because we made many kinds of wagons and wheelbarrows. And then on this side, you have a gentleman holding the Capitol Dome, because we were the state capitol and many people were employed building the state capitol or worked for the state. Then there is a scholar. There's a gentleman holding a lamp and a book. because Michigan, was called Michigan Agricultural College, was out in East Lansing, and also the Lansing School District in the 30s was regarded as one of the best school systems in the state of Michigan, and so it represents that. Then there's a
My mother was born on Michigan Agricultural College in 1923, and it says on her birth certificate that it's Lansing, Michigan.
wow.
Yeah.
Then there is a clergyman, because Lansing really was a city of churches. If you think back to the original plat, the area around what is now the Capitol was reserved for churches. And until the middle of the last century, many of those churches were still there. The churches on the Allegan Street have been replaced by parking structures in the post office. 2 of them were lost in fires, but the First Presbyterian Church, which was at the corner of Allegan and Capitol, they built the new church, which is on Ottawa Street and Chestnut. Yeah. Then they sold the church, the older, which was their second church, and it was demolished. And of course, on the south side, there are still all of the churches. And then
North side.
north side. I don't know my left from my right, so I'm used to north and south. I always have to think. I write with my right hand, or when you hold your hands up like this, it makes an L for left. And then inside here, it continues, because you can find a gentleman holding a tool that looks like he is a dentist. There is what I call a cash register man, because there's a gentleman holding a cash register, because they were merchants in town. And then up at the top, at the very peak, there's a guy waving at you. And that was because the stonemason was a gentleman by the name of Aloysius Freaky. And he did all of this carving on site, both what you will find inside the bank and outside the bank. And that's the owner of the bank waving at you. Not the Bank of Lansing, but the City National Bank, who was the original bank that started construction of that building, and I'm supposed to be the bank owner waving at you. You can see the bank owner inside holding a bag of money.
Oh.
So that all of the stone, and also it's just beautiful because there are corbels inside of every window, and the gentleman who carved and designed this had a very good sense of humor, because you cannot pass this around, because in one there is a cop and there's a bank robber. The bank robber has a gun, the cop is recognized by it, and he's got his hands up. In another you find the man with a toothache, he's got something wrapped around his head and he's holding his mouth, and the dentist with the apparatus that they used to use to pull your teeth with. So the corbels are inside and outside. You will find them. You can find lots of animals carved from the money on the inside of the bank, and these are animals that appear on currency, in ancient currency and in modern currency of the 1930s. On the south side of the bank, on the exterior, around the windows, at the top of the pilasters, which are half columns that run between the windows, the capitals are animals and people that appeared on coins in the 1930s, American coins. You can find Miss Liberty, you can find Mercury, who was on the dime, a Native American who was on the nickel, the buffalo, you can find corn, you can find wheat, and these were all off American coins of the 1930s. The tile work that's inside the building, the mosaics, were also done by a fairly notable local family who did the mosaics. Most of those stones that they used were cut in place, and they were put in place inside, because the mosaics are inside the bank. Inside the bank is breathtaking, because I don't know if you've been into the bank, but once you walk through the bronze door, because this is one of 16 panels. The bank was open when I took this picture, but when the bank's closed, there's a bronze door, and one of the panels on the bank, on the door, is the original building that was on this site before they knocked down to build the new skyscraper bank.
Do you know the name of the family that did the mosaic work?
You know, I have to find that out, and that's the one thing I don't know. I do know that the person who did the iron work was a gentleman by the name of Samuel Yellen, and Sam Yellen was probably the most famous iron worker in the 20s and the 30s in the entire United States, and he was from Philadelphia. And if you had a chance and you walk past the bank, or you come on the tour on the 18th, you can see that the iron work, the bars are not just plain bars. They're very with circles, lines. It's very intricate. It's very pretty. But when you walk into the bank, it's a very breathtaking experience because you're facing west. And on the south, behind the tellers, and this was one of the first banks in the United States, and the first bank here in Lansing that went to tellers as we know them today. Prior to that, in a bank, the teller would have been in a cage. So this was the first like sort of open counter type style. Now those are modern. The ones that are in the bank now are modern, but originally they were the same style. And behind them is where you find the mosaics. And the chandelier is an original chandelier. But then when you look up, it looks like there are these beautiful painted wood beams extending across the ceiling. But they're not wood, they're painted leather. And they were painted on site by people using scaffolding. And then, of course, between the mosaics, there are corbels at the end of the beams. And again, that's where you find the several different people who appeared on ancient coins, I believe, but the bank owner is one of the people holding a bag of money under one of the corbels, and it's kind of fun. But it's beautiful. And then when they had to, in the 80s, when they redid the bank, they had to put a balcony in. And the balcony fits very much in character and feeling of the building. But one of the things I think that is, because here's a picture of the lobby, I think the thing that is the most fun, or the thing that makes me laugh the most, is the stone carver truly had a great sense of humor. And in the lobby to the office building, because the lobby to the office building is to the north of the main entrance to the bank on the west side of the building. It's this little office area. And so the ceilings are not as high as they are here in this room. So maybe they're 10-foot ceilings. And there are corbels in the corner. And this is Kenneth Black, the stone carver carved Kenneth Black in two of the corners, and he carved Carl, how do you say his name, Reiniger? Reiniger. Carl Reiniger in the other two, because Reiniger is holding bricks, while this gentleman is holding the old tools of architects, the square, the triangle, and the T, and his plans. Right? And the other is holding the work of construction. And at the time, Mr. Black did not have a beard, and so he did not. And
I don't remember him with a beard.
Right, and so he asked the stone carver, well, why did you carve me with a beard when in fact I do not have a beard? And he said, because you will be so old and have such a long beard by the time somebody builds a more beautiful building in Lansing that you will have a beard, which is true, because this was probably the last of the really opulent buildings. And I can pass this around, because here's the bank president holding his bag of money. This was produced because, of course, this bank has had many owners since the Bank of Lansing. It was Manufacturers Bank, and now it's Comerica Bank. So this was done by manufacturers right after they had renovated the building. And then I have another interesting piece. When the Bank of Lansing celebrated their golden anniversary, they did a special edition newspaper which talks about and has pictures of many, I can pass this around, of many of the highlights on the building. And it was really thanks to the employees of this bank that I learned so much about the bank, because I started doing tours for kids because a teacher asked me if I would. And I didn't really know a whole lot about the history of the building in Lansing. You could talk about the architectural styles and about it architecturally, so I had to learn about the buildings. And it was really great because you'd be doing tours and the employees would hear you. And I started accumulating all of this stuff that the employees had that they
Wonderful.
gave. So that,
Wonderful, there was still some old enough to remember.
yeah. So those are the highlights of our hidden treasures of downtown Lansing. I found an old postcard that I'll pass around of the old tower before they put the addition on it. Because it's been, you know,
Doesn't look weird,
Bogie,
does
Mr. Bogie is not the first person who wants to add to this building. It was the Michigan National Bank added to the building in the 1940s, I think. But they did such a good job of matching the building and the pattern and the color of the bricks that you really can't tell when you stand on the front of that bank that it had been added to.
On Allegan Street,
On the Allegan Street side, yes.
that what was next to the old tower was the Elks.
Elks was there, yeah. And Estelle's cafeteria.
So I'd like to,
Yeah, right.
again, invite you all to, we're gonna do a downtown tour on the evening of September the 18th, beginning at 5:30 in front of what is now the Comerica Bank building. Hopefully we'll even get inside the bank
I
that evening.
remember the one of these.
And we'll serve a little refreshments after the tour.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.